My daughter knew and told her friends that he's not her real dad while he was listening. He was just a step away, but her words made him feel like a complete outsider, and now my marriage is almost falling apart. I currently can't sleep at night. I don't know what to do. I keep hoping and praying that everything goes back to normal once a new day starts, but each day comes with its own torment. Hello, my name is Bella, and this is a throwaway account for obvious reasons. I never thought I'd find myself in this situation, but here I am, overthinking, and it's making me depressed. So my husband, let's call him James, and I have been married for 13 years now, and he's been the only constant man in my life and in the life of my daughter Amber. But the moment those words left my daughter's mouth, everything changed. James has done nothing but be a good dad and a good husband. So I never believed I would do anything that would hurt him. But before you judge me, here is a short recap about our relationship, so you will fully understand how this came to be. James and I met shortly after I had just ended a rough relationship with my ex. I was vulnerable and felt lost after the breakup when he showed up in my life. He was patient, kind, and he also helped me gather the strength to move on, or so I believed. Our connection grew quickly, and next thing, we fell deeply in love. Soon we discovered I was pregnant, and from the moment he found out, my husband was over the moon, and he supported me through every step. He even attended every appointment and painted the nursery, and he even read baby books just to prepare for the arrival of our daughter. The joy he felt was obvious enough for anyone around him, and it was very clear he was ready to be a father. It wasn't long after we found out that I was pregnant that he proposed and we got married. When our daughter was born, he held her for the first time with tears in his eyes, and I knew he would do everything to be the best dad. I was so happy being with him and how he approaches everything in life. I knew he would take care of us dearly, and I had no doubt that our relationship would turn out perfectly. But one day, when my ex, Luke, showed up again in my life, that's when everything started to falter. After Luke and I ended things and I moved on, the first time I ran into Luke again was when James and I were already married. Also before the marriage, I was not totally over Luke, although I knew deep down that I wanted to be with James for the rest of my life. He was the right choice, the logical choice. He was the perfect and better option, unlike Luke, who wasn't. But that's the problem with emotions. They are not logical. So despite all James was and everything he did for me, there was this little part of me that kept missing Luke, wanting him. You see, Luke is my first love, and our love wasn't like other first loves that only scratched the surface. Oh no. We were so deep in love that we lost ourselves in each other and found ourselves in each other as well. So it wasn't easy getting over him, but I tried. I really tried to forget about him and everything we've shared. I know it might sound as though I do not love James. No, I really do. But what I had with Luke was wildfire that consumed everything in its path and burned for a long time, that even when you think the fire is out, it's still burning deep in there somewhere. Which was why when he popped back into my life, the fire just flared up again. I remember it like it was yesterday, the first time I saw him since after our breakup. Amber had just turned 12, and we couldn't celebrate her birthday because we were all so busy. I took her to the mall some days after to pick whatever she wanted, and that's where I ran into Luke. My heart nearly burst out of my chest, and to be honest, I couldn't even place why I felt that way. Was it fear or was it joy? He was so happy to see me, and when he pulled me in for a hug, I couldn't even protest it. I hugged him back, holding him tight as I inhaled deeply to take in the smell of that perfume of his. He still hadn't changed the brand after all this time. He told me he missed me, and I froze. If I'm being honest with you all, yes, I missed him. I missed the way he made me feel, but I am a married woman and I couldn't forget that fact. So instead, I told him that it was good that I left such a lasting impact on his life. My daughter, who had been running around the mall, soon came to me and saw me talking to this strange man who she had never seen before. Luke was honestly shocked. He told me that I had really gone and settled down and I had gotten everything I wanted. Oh, I forgot to tell you. The reason we broke up was because I wanted something more than I wanted to be with Luke. I wanted a husband, a child or some more, a dog, white picket fence, and a Subaru. Everything that makes a woman a happy family woman. But he didn't want any of that. He believed that the weight of marriage sucks the joy and love out of every relationship, and due to our differences, our relationship became toxic. and we had to break up. Anyways, it looked like he had finally let go of that ideology because he was now married. It was quite hurtful that he could abandon an idea he strongly believed in for somebody else but not me. But regardless, my poker face didn't falter. He suggested that we exchange contacts so we could keep in touch, but I refused. I told him that I didn't think that was a good idea. See? I didn't want that. I was intentionally fighting to keep him away and to keep my marriage safe. My daughter asked who he was, but I told her that he was no one and took her away. I felt proud of myself. I never thought I would be able to resist Luke, and I thought all my years of being away from him had finally dampened my feelings for him. But what I didn't know was that the first domino had just fallen. That was going to become a meeting I would regret forever. Looking back at it now, I strongly wish that Amber and I just stayed home that day and ordered in. I guess the road to hell is really paved with good intentions. When Amber and I got home that day, I took some time to myself in my room. I felt my heart dropping into my bowels and rising back up. It was like gravity kept going off and on in my insides, and I felt like the only thing that could give me rest was the person I was trying my best to stay away from. I felt restless, so I took my bath, but I still didn't feel any sense of calm. I went down to the kitchen where Amber was having some cereal, and I playfully told her she was eating without me as I pulled her cheeks. She laughed and told me that my hands were cold. I didn't realize that, so I touched my neck with my palm, and indeed my hands were cold, but my body temperature was still warm. I started to question myself and ask what's wrong with me. That night was not any easier. I kept rolling from one side of the bed to the other, and James was very worried. He woke me up several times asking if I was okay, and I always assured him that it was fine, that I was just having nightmares. But they weren't actually nightmares. That's if you call having intimate dreams nightmares. In my dreams, I kept struggling against myself to submit to Luke, no matter how enticed I felt, but I failed most of the time. The next day, I went to see my therapist, with whom I shared what was going on with me, and her words couldn't have gotten me any angrier. She said that the feeling of unrest and temperature change and palpitations and even the dreams I've been getting is a result of me challenging my nature. She claimed that deep down, I wanted to, but I was fighting against it. She said it was similar to withdrawal symptoms faced by addicts. Her words got me so agitated that I shouted at her and stormed out of her office. I went home and decided to put the unrest I was feeling to work. So I began arranging the whole house, and in that process, I saw the edge of a white card hanging out of the side pocket of the bag I took to the mall that day. I pulled it out, and my heart expanded in my chest. It was Luke's business card. I couldn't understand how it got in there, so I came to the conclusion that Luke might have sneaked it in while I was walking away. But how did he do it without me noticing? I kept asking myself several questions, but I knew all of that was not important. The important question was what I was going to do with that card. The right thing to do would be to burn that card immediately. So why wasn't I doing that? I stood still with that card in my hand, and I began asking myself if my therapist was right. Was I having withdrawal symptoms? Was it really my nature to be addicted to Luke? Or was it that it was to be disloyal? I hated myself for everything I was feeling, so to prove to myself that I was good, that my nature wasn't any of the negative things I was thinking about, I hurried down to the kitchen. Without a second's thought, I put on the gas cooker. I lowered the card into the flame, but with each inch the card covered to the fire, my firmness staggered. By the time the edge of the card got into the fire and began burning, I quickly pulled the card out and threw it on the floor, stepping on it several times to put off the fire. I needed to talk to someone because I couldn't talk to my therapist and give her proof that I was indeed a terrible person, and that she was right. I wouldn't hear the end of it. I couldn't exactly tell my husband about it, so I went to see my friend Emily. An action I regret taking. Emily was quite fascinated by what I said to her, and her advice was that I had an itch that needed to be scratched, so I should just scratch it. It sounded reasonable on different levels. Maybe I just needed closure. Maybe I just needed to talk to Luke. So I called him after I left Emily's place. I didn't even need to introduce myself. He knew my voice, and he said he was beginning to think I wouldn't call. I asked to meet, and he was more than happy to oblige. We met out for lunch, and after hanging out and catching up, there was this awkward silence as we walked to our cars. We had talked till it was late at night and we didn't even notice. I told him I should be on my way before turning to go to my car, but then he suddenly caught arm and pulled me. I could have resisted, but I fell right into his arms.
No.
He told me I can't just leave without giving him a hug at least. He said that, and I felt a rush of cold all over. I looked up at him, and he looked down at me, and before any of us knew it, we were in each other's lips. After about 10 seconds of such a deep moment, I saw James's face in my thoughts, and I quickly pulled away. I told him that I can't do this, that I am married. He told me that he's married too, but he doesn't care. I tried walking away. That's when he asked me why I called him. I paused and told him that I wanted to get something off my chest. He asked if it was off yet. And to be honest, it wasn't. My heart was beating faster than ever at that point. Immediately I answered no. I walked back to him and kissed him passionately. We did it in his car. It turned out that the itch I had wasn't the type that would stop after one scratch. Instead, it was the type that kept expanding after the first scratch, and I needed to keep scratching it. It was an addiction. Luke and I began sneaking around like teenagers, and that's part of what made it fun and thrilling, and the fact that we tried to make sure to see each other as little as possible. In the year that followed, we met up about 6 to 7 times, and like the universe was playing games on me, on the morning of Amber's 13th birthday, there was a knock on our front. We were having a party for her, and her friends had slept over the night before, but we definitely weren't expecting anybody that early. James had taken the day off work and was going to help with making sure everything went well for his precious girl's day. That's the kind of man he is, sweet and thoughtful. He was the one who answered the door, and he saw Luke standing there. They didn't know each other, so James was quite interested about why this stranger was standing in front of his house. He said he was my friend and asked for me. James welcomed him in and came to tell me that someone named Luke was looking for me. I nearly fainted. I quickly asked what Luke said to him. He was surprised by how tense I was, and he told me that he just wanted to see me. I hurried downstairs. "What are you doing here?" I remember asking him that. My lips were shaking, as was my voice, because I was very terrified. He said he realized something and he wanted to talk to me about it. My husband went to the back to set up the barbecue stand and continue with the designs. So to make sure no one was hearing us, I dragged him to the utility room. I knew Amber and her friends were in her room upstairs, so I wasn't worried about them. I asked Luke what was so important that he had to risk us being caught. He then started stating obvious things. He said that I've been married for 13 years. I was angry that he was saying something so obvious, because I spent my wedding anniversary with him, which was 2 months ago. My husband wasn't in town. I couldn't have foreseen what he was heading to. I had told him the story of how James and I met and how we started dating, which made him privy to knowledge that we dated for only 6 months before we got married. He had put the numbers together and they weren't adding up. He said that he could, unless Amber was born premature, then she is definitely his child. He admitted that he had his suspicions for some time now, citing that there was some resemblance between him and her. I shut him down, cautioning him to stop spewing nonsense. He didn't like my tone, so he said that he could always go have that conversation with James and see what he thinks. I was horrified. My world was being threatened. I begged him not to do that, and admitted the truth. Amber was his daughter, and James didn't know. I begged him not to do anything. He said he can't just leave his daughter with another man. I was so mad, but I couldn't throw any tantrums because he had all the cards. I begged him to just leave, that we'd talk later. He didn't want to, but I told him that if he ever loved me, and still loved me, then he should leave and we'd talk about everything later. He left the house and I went to the back where James was almost done with everything. He asked about Luke and I said he had left, that he was a member of an association I was a member of, and he just wanted to drop off the check the group had contributed for Amber's birthday. He said that was quite thoughtful and wasn't suspicious of a single thing. Later that day, when the party was about to start and the cake arrived, Amber came down and saw the cake. It wasn't the one she wanted. She spoke about how much she hated the cake with so much spite in her voice. My husband tried explaining that the store had run out of the cake she wanted, so he ordered that one instead. Amber was so furious. I had never seen her so bitter. She said she didn't want it, and I told her that it still tastes the same as the one she wanted. She wasn't having it. She pushed the cake over and it scattered. My husband was so furious that he shouted at her. His voice shook the entire house. He canceled the party, saying that she didn't deserve one. She stomped upstairs and her friends quickly followed her, and the next thing she mumbled to her friends was, "It's not like he is my father." I heard it. My husband heard it, and my heart stopped beating. He shouted her name, but she didn't answer. He skipped up the stairs and I tried to stop him, but he wasn't listening to me. This was the first time I had seen James this outraged. I had seen him angry several times, but nothing like this. He practically knocked her door in and asked her what she meant by the nonsense she said. Without blinking, she repeated it. She said he wasn't her father, so he should stop acting like it, and that if he thought it was a lie, he should ask me. I was just by the door, and James looked at me. I walked in and told her that she was just angry, so she shouldn't let her anger make her say trash that wasn't true. She didn't blink as she told me to tell him the truth. James looked at me and asked what she was talking about. I couldn't answer. I was stunned. She told James that when she was playing hide and seek with her friends and I hid in the utility room and that she heard everything. I almost melted. James called my name as though hoping for an explanation, but none was coming out of my open mouth. I began crying as I told him I was sorry. He couldn't believe it. He moved back unsteadily and I tried to approach him. He told me to get out and I tried to calm him down, but he just hurried downstairs and I followed him, begging him for a chance to explain. He opened the door and some birthday guests who had just arrived were just about to knock. He pointed out the door and shouted that I should get out. Everyone was so terrified by the level of rage he displayed. Out of fear of causing a scene, I slowly walked out in shame. I need opinions on what to do next, because he's refusing to talk to me or listen to my apologies. Any unbiased opinions and advice will help. Update. Hi everyone, it's me again. And gosh, how I wish me coming back here was with good news, but unfortunately it is not. The worst has happened and I am completely lost. It breaks my heart so much to know that the family I fought hard to have is all gone. Most of you have labeled and judged me without considering the reason why I did what I did. Yes, I know keeping the truth away from James was bad, but I did what I had to do to protect both him and my daughter. He is the perfect father for her and she loves him just as much. Why would I want to ruin something so beautiful? But Luke couldn't help himself. He just had to come and mess everything up. I saw some of you saying that I only regret getting caught and that if I had a second chance, I'd still make the same mistakes, but that's not true. I've learned. I really have. Because now that I think about it, if I had only come clean with James at the beginning of our relationship, he might have been open to being with me, and I believe that would have made us even stronger. So, yes, I have learned. But I suppose it's too late. It's too late because I have tried everything. I have begged and pleaded and promised the world to James, but he doesn't want anything from me. He doesn't even want to see me or hear my voice. Every time I call, he just ends the call without answering. And what's worse, he took Amber. He loves her so much that even though he isn't her biological father, he can't let her go. He's willing to take care of a child that's not his own even after he found out. And it makes me regret not telling him at the beginning even more. It's really painful for me to know all this, but I know it's a lot more painful for him. As though my life isn't going through so much drama already, Luke is suing for custody of Amber. He has already proven to be her biological father with a DNA test, which the court requested, and now we are fighting almost every week in court. James doesn't seem to have any plans of giving Amber up, and I don't want him to either. I don't know what Luke's marriage is like, nor do I know the kind of person he is with children. I was so angry when he sued for custody. This was a man who was so against having children that it became a topic of contempt in our relationship. So how am I supposed to believe that he suddenly wants children? Even more, what makes him think he can handle a teenager when he can't even handle himself? Anyways, the fight is still on. I will try to make sure James wins, even if it means I won't have access to my daughter. If she needs me, I'll always be here. As for the standing of my marriage with James, I don't know where that lies. Because James hasn't said anything about our marriage, or even talked about a divorce yet, and I hope he doesn't. Like I said, he doesn't talk to me. The only time I see him is in court, and even then, he doesn't talk to me. I don't know if I should hope that him not saying anything about us is a good thing, that perhaps he means to give me a chance in the future, or maybe it's just that he doesn't even want to be bothered with the thought of me and that he had dumped me in his mind. Whichever one, my heart aches, and I don't know what to do. I feel like a terrible person, and even Emily won't talk to me anymore. She said her husband doesn't want her to be seen with me. How could she? When she was the one that suggested that I do the thing that caused all of this chaos in the first place, I feel so betrayed. It goes without saying that I had to move out of the house, and James wasn't even there when I moved it. He just told me he didn't want to see me anymore. I had to go back to my parents' house where I spend half of every day getting an earful about how they always knew Luke was wrong for me and how they were happy we didn't end up together, but that I had to be stupid and welcome him back into my life. Then I spend the other half of every day running errands for them. I'm suffocating and I need air. But what can I do? I can't stay alone because I'm scared I might do something extreme. So I'm stuck here with my parents. I wake up and sleep in regret. I breathe regret, and all I can think about is how to make it all right. But no matter the amount of thought I put into the matter, there is nothing I can come up with that is worthwhile. This isn't some mathematics problem that can be solved by simply knowing the formula. James was my life, and I threw what we had away. I'm sorry that I'm venting unnecessarily. It's just that I need people to talk to since I can't talk to the people around me. I feel so alone, and for the life of me, I have never felt so lonely. Thank you for all your replies, both rude and not. It's all appreciated. This might just be my last update because this platform is just so toxic, and it's hard because the hard comments are just too much. And stop judging. You never can tell where you will find yourself, as life is very unpredictable, but with whatever comes, I'll try to approach it more honestly from now on. Update. I know I said the last time was going to be my last update and I won't be coming back here anymore, but I had nowhere else to go or anyone to talk to. Like I stated before, not even Emily will talk to me. Everyone now hates me, including my daughter. She blamed me and said I made her life miserable and that I don't have the right to be her mother. She also has refused to talk to me, but I guess I deserve it. After all, I single-handedly messed up her life. She had apologized to James and said he was the better parent. But me... The words she had for me were as painful as they were cruel. She said I was the reason why everyone is just so messed up in her life and that I have denied her the joy of growing up with both her parents. There is nothing worse than hearing her say all those things. The pain I feel is just too much and it hurts badly. And just so you know, James won the custody battle because he was the better parent and was more stable. He and Amber have a strong emotional bond and the judge couldn't ignore that. So he ruled in James's favor while Luke was only given visitation rights. And that made me very happy, but also it caused me pain whenever I visited Amber, because she mostly didn't want to see me, and when she eventually decided to give me a few minutes of her time, she told me that her life was very complicated and confusing because of me, and now I'm trying to ruin it more by forcing a stranger into her life and making her spend time with him instead of doing something more important. And she is right, because Luke is a stranger to her. He never was there for her, not even once, and it's all because of me, and I feel bad for it every time. I have failed as a wife and a mother. I feel like I am in hell right now because the little hope I had that maybe James will take me back into his life is all gone, and it's because of Luke. I regret knowing him and running into him that day. He was my past. He should have just stayed in the past. But no, he had to show up and mess my family up because he didn't just try to take my daughter away from me. He destroyed my family. During the court case, Luke had intentionally or unintentionally outed us. Now James knows I was cheating on him. Yes, I know I said I was going to be honest, but there was a lot going on at the moment and I needed things to cool down a bit before I could tell him everything, but Luke couldn't keep his mouth shut. He had to spill everything because he was angry he had lost the court case, and now I'm the one paying for everything. Everything sucks around me. Even the air that I breathe. It's just so suffocating. The thing is, when James discovered that Luke and I had been sneaking around with each other, he spoke to me about it. I wanted to lie about it just so I could save my marriage, but I knew I had to be honest because I wanted a fresh start with him, and I wanted to show how I have changed and that he can trust me now. I wanted to put an end to all those times I had spent lying to him, but then it became the end of us. James said he can't trust me anymore. After I explained everything to him, he was shocked and heartbroken, and he stared at me silently for a minute before he finally spoke. He said he thought I loved him, and I told him that I do and I will always love him, but then he called me a liar and said he always thought he meant something to me, but I had deceived him. I tried to explain to make him understand that it wasn't about him and that it was my mistake and my weakness, and that it won't happen again. He shook his head and said he was done, that I didn't just lie to him that he was Amber's biological father. I also cheated on him with that same man. I betrayed him and took everything he believed about us and destroyed it. That I never respected him or cared about him. If not, I wouldn't have done what I did. He said he deserves better and he wants a divorce. I am still begging him to reconsider. How do I change his mind? Please tell me. I am so desperate. I really need to win him, please. I'm ready to do whatever it takes to fix this. If anyone has genuine advice on how to go about this, I'm listening. Thanks for reading. Update. I know it's been months since my last update, and I am here to give one final one. A lot has happened to me, and I just want to fill you guys in. I never imagined my life would turn into a long series of regrets, painful reminders, and a loneliness so deep it feels like it's hollowed me out. James and I spent years building a life together, sharing dreams, laughing, and loving. I thought I'd have forever with him, that we'd grow old together, and that he would be by my side through everything. I thought he would always forgive me, that somehow he would find it in his heart to give us a second chance. But he didn't. Even when I begged him multiple times, texted him, and even sent him letters to show him how serious I was and how ready I was to be the wife he had always wanted, but he has refused to forgive me. I broke down in every way a person could, pleading for another chance. I tried everything. I poured my heart out to him, admitting my mistakes and explaining my own weaknesses over and over again. I promised I would change, that I'd do anything to make things right, but nothing worked. James didn't listen. He said there was no going back. I was adamant about the divorce, so he filed for it, and though the process was long and agonizing, he still stood firm. Every time I hoped he might change his mind, or that there might be a moment when he'd look at me with a little hint of the love given the kind of relationship we had, but I was only met with the same cold finality. He made it painfully clear that forgiveness wasn't on the table, and I would have to live with the fact that I had destroyed us. The divorce papers were signed, and just like that, he was gone from my life. My 13 years of marriage are all gone. Losing him was a blow I never thought I'd survive, but losing my daughter, our beautiful little girl, was a wound that left me empty. But every day I feel the weight of Amber's absence. I feel it every time and every second, and even in the silence that fills my days, and even in the ache that has settled permanently in my heart. I've lost not only my family, but my place in the world. Every family gathering now centers on me, and they always find a way to remind me of everything I threw away. When I walk into a room, I can feel my parents' eyes on me, and I can feel the whispers just under the surface. I know what they're saying, that I'm the one who destroyed my own family, that I'm the one who couldn't stay faithful, that I've embarrassed everyone in this family. It's a suffocating and crushing feeling, knowing that the people who once loved and accepted me now see me as nothing but a disappointment and a mistake. As if that weren't enough, the man I ruined my marriage for has completely cut me off. When things fell apart, he disappeared without a second thought. He had no interest in being there for me, no intention of helping me pick up the pieces of the life I shattered for him. I was left with nothing but the stark reality of my own choices. And this is all because of my foolishness and recklessness, that I had risked everything for something so fleeting, something that never even mattered in the first place. Now I am utterly alone. My husband, my daughter, my family, I've lost them all. My life feels like a series of empty spaces where people used to be and where love used to be filled. There are days when I don't know how to keep going, when I wonder if this is the punishment I deserve for betraying the one person who truly loved me. This is definitely going to be my last update, and I'll just have to accept my reality and try to move on. Thank you to everyone who's been with me through this, even when I couldn't see past my own mistakes. I've learned in the hardest way possible that sometimes the things we think are small can have the power to change everything. And sometimes the hardest thing and the right thing are the same. Thank you for reading and listening to me vent.